Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Friday afternoon's webinar. And my guest today is Rosemary Lombard Murrain. So, Rose, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
We begin these webinars, perhaps not unexpectedly to you, with doing a little bit of soft belly breathing together and just relaxing and coming into this place with each other. And we invite everyone, all of you who are watching us, please sit with us. Remember, this is a concentrative meditation, and all you need to do is sit comfortably and allow your breathing to deepen, letting your eyes close to remove external stimulation. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth, with our bellies soft and relaxed. Concentrating on the breath coming in through our nose and out through our mouth. On our bellies softening and relaxing with each exhalation. And on the word soft as we breathe in, and belly as we breathe out. Remembering to relax a little more with each exhalation. Feeling your whole body relax. If thoughts come, let them come, notice them, let them go. Gently bring your mind back to soft belly. Couple more deep breaths. Okay, slowly, gently open your eyes. Let your attention come back in the room. Soft belly breathing is always important for me. It's my go-to practice several times a day. Just as we're doing it at the beginning of this webinar, we do it at the beginning of all of our meetings at the Center for Mind Body Medicine, and at the end as well. And I'd like to add that it's been particularly important to me and to all of our staff during the turmoil and during the threats of COVID-19, and with political division, and with all of our efforts to sort of rebalance the imbalance in inequities in our country, to deal with the systemic racism that we're becoming increasingly aware of and increasingly committed to dealing with. So soft belly breathing is my best friend as we move through this crisis. And Rose, it's great to have you here with me, breathing with me, working with me. Rosemary and I have known each other since she was born. She's my goddaughter, as well as the managing director of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And so as we talk today about our lives and our work together, and where we're moving and how we're moving ahead to bring the work of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine ever more widely to people here in the United States and around the world, I'm also reflecting a bit on how we have moved through the trauma that inevitably comes to human beings in our lives. So I'm feeling, just as I'm looking at you and talking now, I'm feeling the depth as well as the length and extent of our connection. So it's great to have you here with me. And maybe you can begin, Rose, by telling people a little bit about who you are and why you decided to come work with me.
Sure. It's great to be here with you, Jim, and it's been great to be with you over the last 11 years, working with you at the center. And of course, yes, I've known you my whole life. You happen to be my godfather, and that is, part of how I arrived here. You knew my mother. I'm the daughter of a civil rights worker and a millwright welder, my father. Pretty interesting pair. And as a friend of my mother, you became my godfather. And when she passed in 1985, you really lived up to your role as godfather and being in my life in that way. So yes, I know you that way. And that's how I perhaps knew about you. But how I came to work with you was at a moment in my life when I was looking for something a little bit more. I had worked for 6 years in international development. I had studied at Harvard, getting my degree in education policy, and I traveled all over the world, starting programs in partnership with ministries of education, communities. And what I saw was something that was helpful, but there are pieces missing. And so at a time where I was looking for how could I do this kind of work, sort of impactful work that really touched people's lives in two ways. One, it seemed like there was a better way to do it from a business perspective. And two, as much as good as I thought we were doing, we weren't addressing the basic health and well-being and needs of communities. So that was sort of set me out seeking a new pathway. And that's when I began volunteering at the center while I was finishing up my MBA.
So Rose, at first you were a little skeptical. You weren't so sure about doing this, as I'm sure many people who are watching us, they're sort of wondering, what is this and why? And so the question is, why would somebody who has had an important career in international development and education, what was it in particular about coming to work with me, coming to work with Mind-Body Medicine that made you make that shift? What did you feel was missing and that would be important to you? And how did you move from wondering, what is Jim up to I want to do that with him?
Sure. Well, I was skeptical, one, because I didn't quite understand what it was that you were doing. But I was interested because what I had seen in traveling from Macedonia to Madagascar to Mali to the Democratic Republic of Congo and starting programs in those areas and working in communities is that while we had good modalities in education that were helpful, they weren't addressing some of the very basic fundamental things the populations were dealing with, be it trauma, be it disaster, be it political insecurity. And so those were things that inhibited how successful we could be with our programming. And I understood you did something in that realm. I wasn't quite sure. I'd seen you do for my whole life these various techniques that I thought were a little strange. So I was curious. So I said, well, let me check it out and let me volunteer. That way there's no real commitment. And at the same time, I'd had a lot of experience with government contracting and working with large funding that I didn't think the parameters of that kind of funding really incentivized true partnership. And so I wanted to find a better way to handle the kinds of grants, the very large grants that we were implementing that felt like it was contributing to the impact we were trying to make as opposed to inhibiting it.
So great. And I think I want to just mention to the people who are watching us that a lot of people do begin by volunteering with us. People come, they work as interns, as you did, kind of coming, hanging out, learning, and then getting more and more interested. And it's often a process. And we offer a whole variety of ways for people to get engaged with us, with these webinars, with online mind-body skills groups, training programs, internship programs. So what techniques in the beginning, when you volunteered with us, what techniques did you find particularly useful, and how did you find them? How do they make a difference for you?
Sure. Well, I have to say, first, I hated soft belly. And I would sit in meetings thinking, why are we doing this? We're wasting our time, and was very impatient with soft belly. And so it took me a while. So I did them, and it was very uncomfortable to sit. But some things shifted. One, watching how busy your schedule was, how many different things you were doing, working on, writing, and yet through that little bit of soft belly meditation, a few minutes, you could leave what you were doing before and dial in and really focus on whatever it was we were talking about in the meeting. And so I watched you do that and thought, there's something here. And then a major shift is that I began to understand a little bit more about mind-body connection as I became a mother. And so that process of having a child really changed my experience with how the body is connected to the mind. And so those two things kind of happening in parallel began to give me my own personal experience, both seeing you and then seeing how it shows up in me, that made me know there's something more to what's going on here, and made me want to know more and learn more of the techniques.
Great. Yeah, that's good. I appreciate being reminded of that history too. So one of the roles that you've taken on, you've grown gradually into a more and more significant role here, working together with me. And one of the places where your work is particularly important, and I know interesting to you, is in partnerships, making partnerships. So can you talk a little bit about how you've worked with me to make partnerships with the groups in various communities all over the United States at this point?
Sure. Well, I remember our first trip together, Jim, in Haiti after the earthquake. And we were there, and we were in a memorial service, a large public gathering, and thinking, this is where I belong, here where I feel like I see a pathway to bring what we have to offer to people in need. And so early on, even before it was fully making partnerships or is in that role, that is how I thought about it, how to bring what we have to offer, what people find of value, and spread it and work with, be it governments or institutions or communities. How do we work in true partnership with them? And that's been sort of what I've tried to evolve. And what I find now has really worked for us is trying to bring in the same techniques that we teach in the model, the self-awareness, the mutual support, into how I partner and how I lead partner discussions with communities. So bringing, helping explain what it is we have to offer, inviting people to learn about what we have to offer, just in the way that I learned about our work and our techniques. And when there isn't a shared sense of value, then looking creatively in that particular moment, how can we do this together? So it's not us parachuting in and leading. It's the community recognizing that there's a need they have that we can support. And then we look at how do we do that together? Because the coming together of the various experience and the network that the community has really creates something new. We are able to co-create a way to bring out in a very large level what we're working on. And that's, I think, critically important now, because we're talking about working in big systems, working in big bureaucracies, working in whole states or whole countries. And you have to be able to work within that structure and partner together.
So one of the things I think that's been really important, and again, is for viewers, is Rosemary's gotten really very good at helping people in communities to develop their networks, to realize the connections they have. And you've been a kind of coach and mentor to people who've come through our training who want to bring it back to their communities in an ongoing way. And I like the way you describe it, that you're bringing our approach to this process of mentorship and guiding people and helping them reach out to their communities and partner with us to bring our program to a whole community or region or state or indeed a country. I want to focus a little bit now on what's been happening in recent months. And one of the reasons I wanted you to be on the webinar with me is to talk a little bit about your personal experience of how you're dealing with full-time work and 3 small children, and particularly during the pandemic when the kids are at home all the time. And I think that's something that I'm sure a lot of people who are watching us have had to deal with, and I think there may be some maybe there's some things you have to share that will be helpful to them. So how have you managed it? I know it hasn't been easy. So
no, it's certainly not easy. It's very humbling, and I have used the techniques. And I've come back to them and it's funny, you talk about soft belly. My initial reaction to it was, it was difficult, but there's so many things going on, both at home, at work, in the political sphere, that it's hard to stay present in what you're doing in that very moment, or maybe in that very moment, there are not as many things going on, or there's a way to approach them that is feasible. So I've used a lot of soft belly.
When you use it, give us a sense of how you get through a day. How old are the kids?
My kids are 6, 8, and 10.
Okay, so you have it. Wake up in the morning. How do you move through the day? How do you organize it so you stay together, both for the kids and also for me and for work and for all the people you have to deal with?
Sure. Well, things are constantly shifting. They're all their own individual people. They're constantly shifting. We are lucky enough to have someone that comes and helps a couple times a week, particularly with our youngest, who Zoom online learning doesn't work. But mostly it's like being in an outfield of a baseball and playing catch and being ready to move in whichever way the ball is coming that day, because every day it seems like the ball is coming, at a different speed, at a different distance. Sometimes you have to run to catch it. So dealing with what's happening in that moment. So some days the kids might wake up and really not want to be on Zoom all day, as I don't necessarily want to be on Zoom all day. So it's really trying to respond to what is coming up in that moment and then deal with that, and not focus on, oh, I'm impatient, I've got to get to the next thing, or I've got these 5 things. But if you've got an exploding tantruming kid in front of you, there's nothing else you can really do in that moment, not Zoom or a call or a conversation.
So bringing your meditative mind into dealing with the kids and dealing with the practical situations, being there in the moment. That's one piece. Another piece that I want you to talk about, because I think it's been really important, is what you've done with physical activity with the kids. And you were a college athlete. You're a basketball player in college, and your team won the national championship when you were at NYU.
Yep.
And you're a very athletic person. And I just want to mention that, like many people who are very active, sometimes soft belly is difficult to begin with. So sometimes physical activity allows us to come into this quiet space. And as you've worked with the kids during this pandemic, I've been so impressed. You've been on a bicycle more than you have in a long, long time since you were a little kid. So talk a little bit about that, because I think that could be very helpful to people who are watching us and thinking about how to be with their kids.
Sure. Well, early on in the lockdown and the pandemic, we were outside as much as possible. It was warmer then. We were outside in the morning before school or work started. We were out at lunch. We were out in the afternoon. The more they moved, the more they could settle down. And I found the same for me. I needed the movement as much as they did. At some point, I think I liked it more than they did, because nobody is built to be on Zoom all day or sit in front of a computer all day. So that movement helped. And we tried different things. We tried biking, running, basketball, whatever we could do, obstacle courses on the playground, whatever it was, that was really helpful for everybody. I tried to get them to do a little yoga. They weren't quite so interested, but I have a photographic proof that my 10-year-old sat and did a yoga class, and there he was in Shavasana lying down. And I was like, oh, I have to capture this moment and remember it when, he's having an attitude or a fit. But we worked in a lot of exercise, and sometimes it meant being late for class or being late for the Zoom, but they needed that to be able to sit. They can't just sit all day. And I find with the online learning, they're actually sitting more than they would be in a regular school day. So and they already had, PE cut, in half. It's very little, but the movement really helped give us something to do together, but also just allowed us to be calm, for them to be tired and to settle down.
The impression I've had, and I haven't seen much of the kids during the pandemic, but the impression I've had is that in some ways, with all the constraints, that you're having more fun with them and that you're more engaged with them during the pandemic than before. Is that true? Does that feel right to you?
It does, in the sense, there are fewer distractions. There's less practices. There's less hustle and bustle and running to this, and more being together, and for longer periods of time. So I feel like I'm learning them better. I'm paying more attention to who they are individually, and I'm now a little more patient because I see them a little more clearly.
Great. I think it's really, to me, it's been inspiring to watch you, and it's so important. One of the things that about our work is that it's wonderfully appropriate for kids. And one of the crucial elements of doing this work of mind-body medicine with kids is moving with them, whether it's being on a bike or shaking and dancing. All the techniques that we've been sharing during these webinars, kids pick up on them right away and enjoy them, and they can use them. I wonder if you want to say anything about reaching out to other families or other moms who are dealing with similar kind of situations of kids at home and work. Any thoughts you have about that, and what's been helpful to you in that realm?
Sure. Two things. One, I find with so much more time with the kids, I now feel like I'm the expert. I'm the mom. I'm the expert. I'm seeing them clearly, and I'm learning, trusting my gut a little bit more, and saying, okay, for the 6-year-old, this Zoom is not working. Don't force it. And as I talk to other moms, I have a group of women I meet with regularly now, mostly on Zoom. But as we share stories, it's really kind of coming sort of in being empowered by spending so much time and watching what they're doing to say, actually, this is not working. We're going to try this, or any kind of little tidbits or exercises, and having some grace. Most of my mom friends are full-time working, are helping primarily with the kids, doing online learning and various support to that. And they're trying to find something that, is their time as well, in addition to possibly being a partner. So it's, I think, kind of being able to laugh at ourselves and find grace and sort of letting go of this control and perfection and these ideas that we come to build in our mind of an impossible standard, especially now in the pandemic.
So I want to thank you, and I want to take you sort of out of the home for a moment and back into the work arena. One of the things that we've been developing in recent months is expanding the work that we've been doing now for 30 years at the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. And we're in the process of developing a nationwide program to heal our collective trauma, a movement for healing our national trauma. And my book is one of the Transforming Trauma, The Path to Hope and Healing, which is the new edition of the transformation, is one of the instruments, one of the ways that we introduce people to our work, and the guidebook we encourage them to use as they move ahead in their work. And I want to talk with you about a couple things related to that. One is, I've been so pleased that you've liked the book so much and that you've been supported it so much. So I want to ask you first a little bit about why you like the book so much. Make me feel good, but it's good for our viewers to see. And then a little bit about how your sense of this movement that we're creating, and what your particular perspective is about it. So first about transforming trauma. What are your thoughts about it? Why have you been aside from loving me and us loving each other, why have you been so wonderfully supportive of it?
I love this book and how it's evolved and being a part of this work, because it's fundamental. The work that we're doing is fundamental to health and well-being. And what you've captured with the book is very concrete, very practical. It's easy to digest, and it shows how anyone can learn these techniques and tools. And that's the larger work we're doing in partnership with communities. It's helping people reestablish their own agency in their health and well-being. So it both gives people things that they can do themselves. It helps them learn and put into context their life experiences in relation to trauma and how it shows up in their life, so that maybe they don't feel weird or strange or crazy. And these are simple techniques. And I find there's no secret. It's practice and coming back to them. So you can read it cover to cover. You can go back and look at a specific chapter. I think my favorite chapter is the chapter on emotions, and learning to recognize emotions as what you say as innocent.
Say a little bit more about that. Why has that been important to you particularly? Because sharing your experience will help people understand not just about the book, but about their own experience as well. So why has that chapter been so important to you?
Well, we're in the middle of a pandemic. There are a lot of things going on. There are people having a lot of things going on personally in their life. There's grief, there's loss, there's change, there's transformation. And that spurs a lot of emotion. There's kids being home, frustrations, all kinds of things that are hard to deal with. And, I had early experiences in childhood that really taught me to shut those emotions down, to push through. And I'm sure many people have similar experiences of learning to not deal with emotions, not address emotions, and that's very stifling. So I find that chapter really helpful to refer to as I think about sort of using soft belly and coming back into the moment and feeling. You know, we're sort of a nation who's lost the ability to feel and connect, and being able to recognize emotions and deal with emotions is a way to feel the challenges of them so that we can move on to the next thing and be able to feel joy. It's like feel the loss, feel the difficulty, and not try to stuff it down, because there's nowhere to stuff it, that it's not going to come back up.
Beautiful. I love the way you say that. You know, we're now in the process of catalyzing this movement for healing our national trauma. So we're going to be reaching out to our current partners and expanding our work with them and communities. And we're inviting, this is the beginning, really the first time we're talking publicly about this movement. So we're inviting our viewers to kind of follow us and pay attention to and join with us in this movement to bring these tools of self-care and self-awareness and mutual support to themselves and to their own communities. And what I'd like to focus on with you right now is something that I know goes right to the heart of who you are, of why this work is so important now, and particularly whether this work has resonance for you in terms of your own history as a child of a white woman and a Black man, and a mother who was so active and so deeply committed to the civil rights movement, and a father who was involved in civil rights and labor movement. So how do you see this moment in history and what you're doing now? Are there do you have a sense that somehow, I have the sense, I suppose I'm saying this, by participating now and reaching out and helping reach out to diverse communities, that you're so much honoring your mother Posey's work, her life commitment?
Wow, that's a big question. Lots of parts there. I think this last year is really a reckoning, and it's really, you know, confronting where we are. And I feel that personally, I feel that professionally, and people are seeing some major issues and challenges, and they're painful, be it the inequities of the impact of COVID-19, the Black Lives Matter movement, and the difference we saw just here the last few days in the Capitol, the response to the breach of the Capitol. So those are painful. And when you begin to look and pay attention, I find them extremely painful. And there's no quick fix. We've built ourselves, you know, into this moment in time, and it's going to take time to really unravel and to address these. So I feel like, you know, there's a role I have to contribute in a way of addressing these very large, difficult systemic issues through this work. The work that my mother did in protesting and fighting for civil rights, it was the mundane, the day-to-day, doing the most basic fight day in and day out, and standing alongside people. That sort of thankless work, you know, people don't know who she is. Thankless work of living your values. And to me, this work provides an opportunity to do exactly that, to do the sort of in the trenches, kind of hand in hand partnering with communities to address systemic issues that don't just unravel undernight, that there aren't quick fixes for, but they're very simple, practical techniques to do it.
So do you want to say a little bit about how we're doing it in the various communities that we're working in?
Sure. Well, we're working in many communities, but I think what comes to mind are not any sort of major big turnkey moment, but it's the conversations that we have coming out of Broward County with the Mind Body Ambassadors, training a whole cohort of students who are teaching their peers how to deal with the trauma post the tragedy at Stoneman Douglas, and now who are integrating the peer counseling techniques of mind body medicine with their friends, with their families. Many people that we've trained there are bringing it out and dealing with the current issues. We know, as you've shared with us so eloquently in your book, that trauma comes to us all. And so what we're doing there is building the capacity for people to deal with what they've lived in the past, what they potentially are going through right now with the pandemic, and what might come about in the future that we don't even know yet. I'm thinking just recently we received a communication from our partner in Allegheny County in Western Maryland, where we've been working to support the community college and it's to combat the opioid crisis and the impact of the opioid crisis. And she so beautifully talked about how the people that we've trained are using this work in their classrooms with their students. Students we've trained are using it with their peers. The work is moving into supporting first responders. So it's not this overnight massive jump, but it's innovation at a grassroots level. That
one of the things that I've been most excited about as we've been doing our trainings online, we have about 1,000 people have come through. Each one of them come through 10 days of training, 8 or 10 days of training in the last 7-8 months. You and the rest of our team everybody's worked their butts off to make that possible. One of the most extraordinary things that I think contributes to, this is part of our contribution to this reckoning with systemic racism, is that we're bringing together all different kinds of people. So when we're in a training program, if we have 200 people in a training program, we have 20 small groups. As we have a large group where we teach the science and do some experiential work. And then we have 20 small groups with 10 people in each group led by one of our faculty. Our faculty is becoming increasingly diverse, which is beautiful to see. And in the groups, there are people whose skins are black, brown, yellow, red, white. We're all together. And for so many people who are coming to our training, this is the first time they've had the opportunity to share and have been willing to share who they are with people who are different from them, different ethnicity, maybe different socioeconomic class, different part of the world. And it's extraordinary to see people open up and come to know each other and also come to see their own prejudices, their own preconceptions. I thought you were like this because you were that. And after a couple of days, things are turning around. So, oh, that's who you are. Now I get it. And people have the opportunity to see both the differences and appreciate the differences and also the commonalities. So it's been very exciting and also exciting in communities where there's considerable conflict. For example, having in the same group community organizers who may be people of color and people who are cops who may be white or maybe people of color who are, for the first time, really getting to know each other as humans. I wonder if you have any impression yourself that you want to share about that experience over this last 9-10 months.
Well, certainly, I mean, this has been 2020 was and continues to be a year of innovation for us. I mean, we really overnight were able to convert our very much in-person, high-touch program into an online format that maintained its integrity and the closeness of the experience that people have in the small groups. And so that's been a huge shift, a lot of, sort of an all hands on deck for the last 10 months of bringing that to fruition and making the tweaks we needed to maintain the program. And I think as I see it come, there are more and more communities coming who, might not have thought about doing something online, but, we're hearing so much talk about mental health solutions. and what's happening in the area of mental health and how are we addressing it. We've been working in this space for 30 years, and now and we have something to offer here. So now with the program in an online format, we are able to continue to do what we have been doing at an even larger scale. So that can mean, one of our new programs that I'm very excited about that's just launching is in Baton Rouge. And our wonderful faculty, Tony Bankston, has been trying to get us there ever since Katrina, when she came through our program and learned about what we were doing. But she has spearheaded this collaboration, this public-private partnership, where we're working with the mayor's office and the governor's office and local area foundations who have all come together and listened to the community that says, we need this. And the community is the school system, it's law enforcement, it's first responders, it's the social workers, all the social support agencies that say, we're good at our jobs, but we need something else. And so there's a coming together, this formation of a true partnership where the donor community says, okay, this is a value, we're going to support it. And the broader community who's experienced many workshops, some that you and I have been to together, and said, I want more of this. This resonates with me.
Great. Yeah, so I think the example of Baton Rouge is wonderful. I mean, it's like having lots of children. All of our programs are like our children, and we're very fond of all of them. The Baton Rouge is interesting because we have been there through Tony Bankston, our faculty members there since Hurricane Katrina. It's 15 years of work, and she's been there longer, and we've been working with her ever since Hurricane Katrina. And that's a community where people are coming together who had a great deal, and some still have difficulty coming together with each other. And that one of the wonderful things about our programs that I appreciate very much, and that lots of people do, is people come together and they're not so sure how they feel about each other. They want to learn what we have to teach, but once they're connected to each other, then all kinds of possibilities start opening up. And in Baton Rouge, what's been very interesting is the openings between the police and community groups. I think we've worked with about 2 or 3, we've done at least workshops with several hundred people from the police department. And we're hoping that many of them will come through our full training and will be bringing this work to the police department. One of the difficulties that the police have, and people who have to deal with crises have, and you mentioned the sort of the disaster that happened at the Capitol a couple of days ago, is that first responders they get rattled. They go into fight or flight, or some of them sometimes freeze. And that in these situations where they're having to deal with confrontations, they don't deal with them as skillfully as they might, because they're so anxious and troubled and upset, and they get so angry themselves. And that our work has a great deal to contribute to bringing people back into balance so that they can deal with the inevitable conflicts that are going to arise. One of the early experiences I had of this was we did this was just a 3-4 hour workshop with the Israeli army people who were going to be removing the Israeli settlers from Gaza. This 2005. And that several-hour workshop taught soft belly breathing and a little bit of body movement to these military men and women, Israeli military. So when the settlers started throwing things at them and calling them names and attacking them, they didn't freak out. They didn't get violent. They recognized what was going on. They were able to center themselves, and they were able to deal with the evacuation of thousands of very, angry, upset, understandably upset people in such a skillful, thoughtful, compassionate, as well as effective way. And I think that's what we have to offer to first responders. That's what we're seeing in the first responders that we've been working with. And one of the other groups another place that you've worked with me in developing the partnership is in Indiana. And what I was struck by, and people may be interested, and at some point we can share this also more with our viewers, is some of the people working in the prison system
Yes.
in Indiana who came through our training, who were very skeptical, even more skeptical than you were at first, much more. They wonder, why am I, I'm not sure, and maybe this is worth something, maybe not. But within a couple days, they started to see how this could help them do what is very demanding work in a much more sort of even-handed, thoughtful way, and in a way that also gave them much more satisfaction, so that they weren't just, kind of being tough and hard all the time and trying to, worry about, am I doing the right thing? But they were more relaxed and so more able to do the work more effectively. I don't know if there are any stories you have that you want to share about that as well.
Well, something particularly about Indiana and working there that I think is pertinent to partnerships is that this kind of work, giving people the techniques, giving people the experience, and letting them come to their own conclusions about what is helpful for them, is a way of incentivizing collaboration that isn't incentivized in any way. The prison system might not be incentivized to work with the school system, yet once they begin speaking the same language, they begin to innovate with ways to deal with recidivism, or sort of school to prison pipeline. So there's something through this connection, both that people gain for themselves, but there's also this larger community of helpers in the broadest sense, from school teachers to healthcare workers to first responders to people serving in the prison system, that they begin to work together and collaborate and have a language of addressing problems that really innovates, as opposed to, well, I'm not paid to work with them or connect with them, so I'm not going to. But it creates this sort of incubation for how to deal with some of these very large community societal problems.
And it's a language, and it's also a spirit, and it's the spirit of openness. It's the spirit of being willing, let me take a few deep breaths and let me approach this problem a little bit differently, which we have to do. We do this when we meet to discuss issues at the center, so that we don't bring in I've got to make my point, or what happened 2 hours ago, so that we can be as relaxed and present as possible with each other. This is we're building. When I started the center 30 years ago, as I said in our mission statement, it was to make self-awareness, self-care, and group support central to all healthcare, the training of all health professionals, and the education of our children. But I also wanted to create a community of healers and a healing community. And what you're describing is how we are catalyzing and nourishing the growth of a healing community in various places, and also how we are very much a part of this national and worldwide community. And Rose, for people who are listening to us who may be interested in bringing our work to their community, do you want to say a few words about some of the practical steps and how they can get in touch with you, and how you help people to do that?
Sure. Well, to me, I always want people to have their own personal experience. So we're always encouraging people to attend our trainings, attend our workshops, attend our webinars. We have so many resources on our website for free to help understand what we're doing and see how it might be helpful to you. But I also, we want to work with communities in the greatest need at the largest scale. So whether it's a city or a state, an institution, a region, a whole country, people who, many ways of how we partner in this moment is people come to us. They say, you have something to offer, and we begin a discussion. What does that look like? What would it look like in my institution? What would it look like in my school district? What would it look like for all first responders? What would it look like, Baton Rouge, under the leadership of the Mayor Broome, wants a trauma-informed city. And so we had spoke with them and said, this is what we have to offer. And we've evolved into a budding partnership there. So wherever you sort of sit or galvanize within, whether you're a community leader, a hospital CEO, or in charge of a large municipality, we can work at the scale that that is there. We've proven that we're doing that, in communities and states and cities and countries. This model translates extremely well. So we encourage people to reach out to us to learn, the techniques for themselves. That's always the first step. And then, encourage a conversation of what it might look like in their community, or having us come and do a workshop and seeing how we can align, how we can support what you're trying to do.
So those of you, everyone who's watching, we're inviting you to participate as you are on this webinar, to invite your friends. We're turning webinars into podcasts as well. We're on our way to doing that. We have all kinds of techniques. The teaching of the techniques are available free on our website, cmbm.org. We have online mind-body skills groups, and we have training. So please, as Rose is saying, get to know us and participate. But Rose, let's say somebody is listening, watching us, who's a high school principal, and she says, yeah, this is interesting what you're doing in Broward, Baton Rouge, these other places. But I can look at these work, I can participate in the webinars, maybe do a workshop, but I'm interested in bringing this to my high school. What would she do? What's the next step for her?
Well, on our website, we have an area for customized programs where you can actually reach out to us directly with your questions, your thoughts, what you would hope for, bring a program to your community and talk a little bit more about that. And then from there, we will respond to you and we'll ask more questions, learn more, sort of what type of community, what are the issues, and how we might be helpful.
How do they get in touch with you, though? You're one of the, you and I, other staff, all of our, we're spreading our wings, and we have 160 faculty who are sharing our work. We have a couple thousand people who've been certified in our work, 7,000 who've come through our training. So we're reaching out more and more. But let's say somebody says, that Rosemary Murrain, I think she's somebody I want to talk to because I really want to bring this to my community. How can they get in touch with you?
Email me.
Where do they email you? What's your email?
My email is rmurrain, that's RMURRAIN @cmbm.org. I also see all of the customized program requests. So either email me or go through the customized program request. And I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm ready to partner. I'm ready to move. I love co-creating with organizations and institutions and figuring out a way that we can serve them.
And I love co-creating all this with you, Rosemary. So thank you so much for being with me on this webinar. We're together all the time, and this is another beautiful way that have enjoyed this hour very much. And I hope all of you who've watched us have enjoyed this time. And this is our invitation to reach out to Rosemary, to reach out to me, to keep looking at what we're doing at the Center for Mind-Body Medicine and see the place where we can connect. How can we help you to become who you're meant to be? How can we help your community? How can we bring this work of population-wide healing to your community? And for the individual work, look at our webinars, workshops, think about coming to our training, read Transforming Trauma. And if you're interested in a larger scale program in your community, if you're a leader in a school system, or you're a first responder and you want to bring it to a group of first responders, or you're a chairman of a department at a hospital, or you're a community activist, you're involved in Black Lives Matter, or you're involved in any of the community groups that are trying to bring about positive change, that's time to reach out to Rosemary, and we will respond. And thank you for responding to my call to be on this webinar. I really appreciate it, and for sharing yourself and your experience with everybody. So we're going to close now. Next week, next Friday, January 15th, Melise Galula is going to be my guest on the webinar. Melise is a mental health advocate and an award-winning journalist and entrepreneur who co-founded Well and Good. And she is sort of been a pioneer in this movement to democratize wellness and is one of our partners, one of the people Rosemary and I are working with to bring our work ever more widely out into the world. So we're going to conclude now with a minute or so of soft belly breathing and with gratitude for, I'm grateful we had this time together, and I'm grateful that all of you were able to be with us. So let's just sit comfortably for a minute or so and relax into this soft belly breathing, which maybe has been a little difficult at first, but hopefully gets a little easier as time goes on, as Rosemary suggested. So closing our eyes, breathing slowly and deeply, in through the nose, out through the mouth, with our bellies soft and relaxed. Focusing on the breath coming in through our nose and out through our mouth. On our bellies being soft and relaxed. And on the word soft as we breathe in and belly as we breathe out. If thoughts come, let them come, notice them, let them go. Gently bring your mind back to soft belly. Just a couple more deep breaths, slowly and deeply. Gently open your eyes, let your attention come back in the room. Okay, welcome back. Thanks again, Rose. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. We'll hopefully see you next week and have a wonderful weekend and be in touch. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.